You've got.
Yeah.
It would be nice.
So are you starting?
Yes, all right, so we are live. So the first thing we do have to do is election of the officers. So I will do the chair and then the chair will do the vice chair. So how that works is we just take nominations. Anybody can nominate anybody. Whoever is nominated, you can accept or decline the nomination. And then we'll do a roll call vote of person who's nominated. Anybody want to nominate anyone?
I would like to nominate Nate King for chair.
I accept.
Okay. Any other nominations? No? Okay. So we will do a roll call vote. So, I believe it's just regular members that vote for the officers. So, Becca, you want to go first?
Yes.
Okay, Matthew?
Associate.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I got mixed up.
Peter is not 20th.
It's right there.
Uh-oh, we need 3.
So we have
Um,
2
we
other
have,
vacant
yep,
members.
we should be good.
Oh, they are.
Yes,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yep. So member Sachs,
Yes.
okay, and member Coe.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And do you two want to introduce yourselves since you don't know the rest of the commission? I probably should have started with that. Sorry.
Hello, nice to meet you all. My name is Peter James Sachs.
Hi, nice to meet you all. I'm Katie Coe.
Okay, so then it's in your hands to run the rest or the vice chair and then the rest of the meeting.
Oh, they already have it, so it's okay.
So do I need to read off all of this before we elect the vice chair, or do I need to proceed with?
Just go ahead and do the vice chair and then you can read that.
Okay. I nominate Rebecca as the vice chair.
Yes.
Anyone else have a nomination or wants to thumb wrestle? Okay. I would say we do a roll call vote.
Mhm.
So we'll do a roll call vote starting with Katie.
Yes.
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 I don't think so. I mean, well,
can vote for yourself.
okay, I'll defer to Dave.
Yes.
All right.
Good evening and welcome to the January 8th, 2026 meeting of the Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Nathaniel King, Chair of the Commission. The commission members are, to my left, your right, Katie Coe, Peter Sachs, Matthew Whitecamp, Rebecca Krupke, Peter Keebler, and then our architectural consultant, Mike Holland, city solicitor, Dave Sevchek, thank you, and planning officer, Anya Kalen. So I will give an explanation of the Historic Preservation Commission. The Historic Preservation Commission has 2 roles. First, we serve as the Bangor Center Revitalization Area Design Review Committee, designated under Section 71 of the city ordinances, which covers review issues in downtown and waterfront areas of Bangor. Second, the commission has several responsibilities under the Historic Preservation section of city ordinances, Section 148, including issuing certificates of appropriateness for construction of or changes to buildings within the city's designated historic districts. We may need to review a proposal under both design review and historic preservation criteria. If all regular members are in attendance, our associate members participate in the meeting but do not vote on motions. In the event that any regular members are absent, associate members will vote such that there are a total of 5 votes for any motion. Historic preservation applications must receive 4 affirmative votes for a certificate of appropriateness to be issued. Design review applications must receive 3 affirmative votes for approval. So the order of the meeting will be as follows. I will call the applicants in the order they appear on the agenda. When I call your project, I will ask you to present your application from the podium. Once you have made your presentation, I will first ask for the consultant's report, second, for questions from the commission members, and third, for any questions or comments from the audience. When questions are completed, the commission will have a discussion of the proposal and the standards of review under which the proposal is being considered. When discussion is complete, the commission will take action on the proposal to approve, deny, or otherwise handle it. When a proposal is being evaluated under both design review and historic preservation criteria, the commission will make separate motions related to each type. I will then ask for commission member votes. Some final points for applicants before the HBC. If it looks like your project will not be approved, you may choose to withdraw your application, amend your application, and then resubmit your application for a future meeting, saving the application fee. If you disagree with the decision of the commission regarding your project, you have the right to appeal the decision to the Board of Appeals. All projects need to be started within 6 months and completed within a year. Otherwise, a new application to the commission will need to be made and approved prior to starting your project. Okay. So with that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 regular commission members present. So we have enough, so we do not need to have the associate members vote today? Or do we? Do we have to have 5? Oh.
So actually reading the bylaws, you can select one of the associate members to be voting on the matter tonight. So
Would you like to vote? You haven't voted in a while. Sure. Peter, you okay? All right. So then we will have Matthew Whitecamp as a voting member for tonight's agenda. Before I get into the old business, is there anything that needs to be added to the agenda? Is there any new business anyone would like to bring forward? Okay. Yes.
At our last.
Microphone.
At our last meeting, we did have some discussion regarding the meetings that we're having and what their frequency should be.
Mhm.
And what potential agendas may be appropriate. For example, if we had a second meeting in a month. We had talked about one meeting for applications and one meeting to discuss the sort of the business of the committee and strategic planning for the committee. And I don't know if that needs to be as an agenda item, but I think that's something I would like to have us discuss tonight and decide whether we're going to make a change or not.
Okay. So will we move forward by adding that as new business at the end of the meeting, or?
you can add it under other business.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so on the agenda, we will first proceed with old business. I would entertain a motion for approval of the meeting minutes from December 11th, 2025, which was postponed, so we don't have any meeting minutes. All right, I should probably read ahead. So then now we will move on to the certificate of appropriateness, 62 High Street, map lot 042-102, High Street Historic District, applicant Tyler Smith, owner Gilpin Holdings LLC. Approval is requested for a certificate of appropriateness for the removal of rotted trim boards and replacement with white PVC boards. The property is located at map lot 042-102 in the High Street Historic District. If y'all would please approach the podium and let's get it on.
Hello, my name is Louis Morrison, and I am representing Gilpin Holdings and Tyler Smith. Gilpin Holdings, the owner, and Tyler Smith, the contractor. And I don't have much of a presentation, maybe a little bit of backstory about the property. Actually, Mike will give us a much better backstory of the property. But as far as my my work in the property is that I represented the buyer in the transaction as a real estate broker. Also a business partner, and basically, the trim around this building has been falling off for years and years. When we went and looked at the building originally, it sat on the market for about a year before we purchased it. And we went and looked at it let's say this time last year, probably went up into the building is mainly housing, voucher program, low income housing, excuse me, which is great. We're big advocates for that. We go up into the attic of this property, which was pretty wide open and open to the common areas. And basically it was more living up there for squirrels. Dozens and dozens and dozens of squirrels and other rodents that you can see sometimes downtown. So it kind of turned us away from it a little bit. We waited probably 2-3 months, went back and looked at the building again and said, Zach is the right guy for this property. He's bought 50, 60 properties in Bangor the last 5 years, has fixed them up, everything from placarded houses to big complexes, has done amazing things in here. I knew he was the right person for the building. Now I'm an old guy. He's a young investor. I had to talk him into, I promise you, this is the type of building you want to get into. We didn't at the time when we looked at it know that it was historic, but whether, that's neither here nor there. The upstairs was in rough shape. But we knew we could do the right things to fix it. So anyways, revisited it, put it under contract in February of 2024. Wasn't able to close till March. I mean, it was a $1.55 million project. So it takes a little bit of sucking up to the bank to allow you to buy a property that old for that much money. And our first order of business and promise to them was to also make sure that it was much more tightened up than it had been for the past who knows how many years. And really the only thing that was wrong with it was the rotted trim, all 4 sides, allowing rodents to get in. So that is why we need to do this and have, as you probably know, have done it within a week after closing on it. So we're asking for permission to do what we've already done.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
Is that Zach?
That is.
Okay, hi.
Yeah. Okay, here it is. All right, if we could go ahead and, go ahead.
I just add, so I guess to piggyback on what Louis said, I would add 2 things. What was there for existing trim? I was there when Tyler did the work and it was rotted to the point where he wasn't removing it with like tools and hammers. He was literally just grabbing it and it was like rotting away with his hand. I think the pictures that Louis sent over you'll be able to see that in the pictures. And then secondly, when we were standing in the attic, you could see light coming in from the outside. So it wasn't like, I guess.
Not just light. You could actually physically probably put a person through some of it.
Yeah. So I guess I say that just to try and emphasize how bad of condition that portion of the building was in when we were looking at it.
In the pictures that I did reproduce last week, even those were that property sat on the market for 243 days before we were able to close on it. So those pictures were taken at least 250 days earlier than that, through a whole nother winter. I mean, it was, I'm not trying to get away with anything. It was really, really, really bad and dangerous. And surprisingly, I don't know how much longer the city would have allowed low income housing to even be in there, as unsafe as it was.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks, Zach.
All right, can we get the consultant's report?
Thank you, Louis. Good job
Mike.
presenting that project. I hope you all have access to the packet that was sent out on this because I attached the National Register nomination paperwork for you all to look at.
Yes.
So this house is historic both as listed individually on the National Register of Historic Places in 1978, and it's a part of the High Street Historic District, which encompasses that and the Hill House across the street and pretty much all the way up, Louis, to Hammond Street. Up around.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? One thing I did mean to put in my speech, which I don't really have a speech, but was that I love that you mentioned the High Street Historical District, and I see that you guys are holding a meeting. And I hope a lot of people attend to get some more clarity on historical. I don't know who put that together, but thank you, because that's,
She's sitting
we need
down here
that so
at the
bad.
end.
You know, some of these young investors, like this property, the second he closed on it, he handed it right over to a management company to, you know, so that we could focus on the building. And those historical things just go, nobody knows. So
We'd
I
love to
really-
have you guys both.
Oh, we're gonna be there. We will be there. If we're the only two, we'll try to bring everybody that should know that you guys are here for us, not against us.
It's for realtors and developers.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, let me give a brief report. First of all, it is after the fact. The improvements were made. And we'll talk about the design and the issues of the cornice and how the cornice gets profiled. But I wanted to read just a little blurb from the National Register listing. This is written by Earl Shuttleworth. You may have all remembered Earl used to
Yeah.
be our State Historic Preservation Officer. He's now retired, but that doesn't mean he isn't still working hard every day. They refer to this as the General John Williams House. And I'll explain why. Above the door of this, there's actually, I think, a cast iron plaque that says Mason House 1820. I think is above the header, the
Yes.
lintel coming in the house. But they refer to it as the John Williams House, who's an important general. It says it was built between 1822 and 1825. Even though it says 1820 above the door, we'll go, it's in that area. It's a solid 2.5-story west-facing building of brick and granite trim in the federal style. This is unique. One of the, I think this was cited as being very likely Bangor's first or oldest brick building that still exists in Bangor. So it's an important historic place. It was known locally as the Mason House because from 1835 to 1955, the Mason family lived there. 120 years, this family lived within this house. I understand it is now multifamily or apartment-like structure, but
Yeah, I think it's 8. Is it 8 in that one?
six
The two
units.
together kind of came as a
Yep.
package. It's 22 units total, but.
So it's almost certainly the oldest brick house residence in Bangor, listed in the National Register in 1979. And the black and white photo, which was part of the package, you can find that photograph. What that shows us pretty clearly, this was in the days before it got in worse condition over time. This was 1978. And what it shows pretty clearly, Lou, is that there was a cornice, a gutter system that ran along the front and probably in the back too. And then there were downspouts on either end of the building. That's important as a feature. What's been put up on the building now is basically the blank, solid, single board that would receive the gutter system onto it. So the gutter system that I can see here is profiled. It's called an OG or a K style. That's a K style, which is the most common gutter profile. And it returns as a boxed condition at each end of the gable. You can see on that photograph as well that there's actually a boxed return, we call it.
Do you have a copy of this picture? Would
I've looked at it. I don't,
you like to take a look while we're
if you
talking?
don't mind.
Yeah, oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you. So I think my point is what's been put up is really the base for what a little bit of more completed work will improve. And so if I could just read you my notes. Sorry, I didn't know if you guys got that or not.
In
Probably,
the emails and stuff I did, but I don't have a printout packet.
so my points are, and I'll just read them off.
And I did see, I don't want to, sorry to keep
No,
interrupting, Mike,
no,
you know,
thank
me
you.
though, I'll forget. I did read that part you wrote, and I was thinking, how does he think that middle gutter looks good? Because the middle gutter looks horrible, and it was never even attached, but in that picture, it's just on the ends,
Right,
which we would love to put
Right,
gutters back on
right.
the ends. Although the place, it does sit kind of on a hill, and then the water just goes,
well,
but yes.
yeah, I think on each ends would be appropriate.
These ones in the new picture, these aren't the old gutters. Those were pieces of aluminum somebody just stuck up to the
Probably.
because the other ones rotted and fell off, like the one on the left-hand side that, you know. anyways.
Probably. So again, as shown in that black and white photo, that's a part of your application or the materials for review. The original details of the eave and rake trim included the profile gutters with the returns at the gable ends of the house. Profile of the gutters was the classic OG, as I said. The return of the gutters, matching those removed will significantly reduce the eave trim scale. Right now, you've got a big blank board. It's a modern detail for a house that's extremely historic.
Sure.
So what I'm recommending in my review is that we return OG style or K style gutter along there and downspouts at each opposite end of the building. The rake trim originally was two-piece, not a single piece of trim applied. The rake trim is the trim that goes up on the rake of the house, which is the gable ends.
Mhm.
So that's up to the commission. What's been put on there now is a single piece. I think it would actually now be clumsy to try to put a second piece on there. So I'm not gonna.
You could almost slice it, but it would look.
Well, the problem is the roof edge, the drip edge along that side comes right out to the face
see,
of
yeah,
that.
I
board,
see what
so
you mean.
it'd be hard to improve. So that's for the commission to discuss. So, and the added benefit of this is not just the integrity of the historic building, but the real added benefit is that it manages the roof water and it keeps it from sheeting and over the brick face of the buildings,
Absolutely.
which would freeze and crack the bricks and cause all kinds of future problems. So, and it also gets the water away from the building and the foundation, and it makes things much safer. So those are the essence of my comments.
I just want to add if we can, because we would love to add gutters and remove shutters. Those are not original. No way are those original, right?
Would make that a separate application.
I know, but I mean, look, who did, somebody did that in the 80s and that doesn't belong on that brick building, but we haven't touched them.
They originally had shutters.
Like those ones? Not,
I don't know what they are now.
those are vinyl green that,
Yeah. I know they look black. It's hard to tell from this photo. But they also were on the gable ends.
shutters, never mind.
They were-
Those are ugly.
Well,
Looking pretty.
it's most important, the front facade of the building, the gable ends, the return sides don't have shutters now. They did at one time, apparently. But
I guess we could add.
that's a separate,
Yes, I hear you.
not even on the application. So you really asked for or this application was really to review the
Correct.
front trim. So those are my comments, Nate.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so now we'll open it up to the commission for questions.
I have a
What?
question, sort of clarification. What we have before us then is an application for after the fact approval of what's been done. However, as Mike has been suggesting, from a historic perspective, it may be appropriate to have something additional done. Your application does not include that additional work, correct?
Correct.
So from the standpoint of, I just want to clarify what we're discussing is an approval for what has been done, not what has been discussed could be done in the future to make it more historic. I just want to be clear about that.
Yes.
Okay.
I
But
think that would be a different application anyways, because what we'd be putting on would be a new modern gutter system than this anyway. So we'll definitely apply for that tomorrow.
I was just gonna say, if there are alterations that you all think could help you vote in favor of this, you can ask them to come back with a change to their application. I don't know that they would have to reapply. I think they could just come forward with a change to this.
I would prefer to finish this part
Okay,
because there's a lot of other things on that building and the one beside it, including a lot of slate work and stuff that we want to do, but we want to ask for permission. So
just mean if you all feel like you're not going to vote in favor of it because you're voting on, if you feel like you can't approve it because of the way it is now and you wanted to vote,
sure.
on an alteration, there's just an option. So
Thank you. Matt? Peter? Brady?
Lou, I have a question
Yeah.
for you. When you approached this project and you were looking at it, was there an aluminum gutter on the building at that time, or was that?
There was bits and pieces of old, what'll look to be like a / Yankee gutter, like rotten, but no aluminum. There was aluminum downspouts.
remnants of still isn't?
I wouldn't call it remnants. Yeah, it was like a
Not,
trim.
not across the front, there was like, on the right side, there was probably like one piece that was dangling, but like definitely not in use and definitely not. But nothing along.
Yeah, the whole front was just like rotten, like somebody had taken just gone.
I think cut the drip edge off of the roof already that went into the wooden gutter that was there.
We didn't do anything with the drip edge or anything.
Okay.
Yeah, the drip edge is at the bottom of the slate, right? No, that's still there and still in great, in actually pretty good shape.
Okay, so then the gutter's been probably gone for a good while. 'Cause
I'm guessing for a long time.
Apron is usually integrated.
Right. Yeah, we have a bunch of those properties and it definitely didn't have that.
Because in this picture from 1978, it looks like it was still there. But
I think the owner from like, say, 92 to 2008 never did one thing to this building.
Two, so yeah. Any other questions from the commission? What? Do you have any, you can ask him? I don't think he'll fight you. Okay. Okay. Go ahead, Peter.
So, a couple questions, and this is actually from a perspective of other commission. We've had some discussion about the situation that we've had that you are participating in which we not infrequently have been getting applications for after the fact work. And we want to partner with folks like yourselves that are doing this so that you have an understanding of what the underlying issues are, the importance of the historic aspects, and take advantage of the incredible resource we have, particularly with Mike, and being able to look at this and give recommendations about how to maintain the historic character.
Absolutely.
The whole purpose of this commission is to try to help with Bangor maintaining as much of its historic cultural heritage as it can through the buildings that we have.
100%.
So one of the issues that we've been discussing, and this is, I want to just get input from you folks, in terms of, we hear from people, oh, I bought this property. I didn't know it was historic. I didn't know there were regulations that I was going to have to follow when I bought this property, et cetera, et cetera. And so we're trying to figure out ways to help new owners or prospective new owners to understand some of these issues. And so that we have are in a position to advise prior to work being done, which costs money, of course, to do the best we can to make this and maintain it in an historic perspective. So in that, understanding that, for example, you have what, 50 to 60 properties? Is that what I understand from you saying?
Yeah, he's got 8, yeah.
So that's a lot of properties, and that's, wonderful that you're doing what you're doing in terms of preserving, buildings that can be used for low income and that sort of issues that we have in the city. But the question would be, I'm first going to ask, do you remember receiving from the city after purchasing this a notification that this was in the historic district and you had certain responsibilities as the new owner as regards the historic aspects of this structure?
I would say that came in the mail after
Okay.
I had already.
Okay.
And I had
So,
moved.
yeah.
I had already moved.
Okay.
address.
Okay.
So
And
I
that's,
didn't get that, but I had already done the work, the trim.
sure. Okay.
Within a week of me buying the building,
And this is probably a main reason why I'm here tonight. Mike can attest, I've been taking advantage of Mike for 20 years. So since 2009, I've been doing this stuff in here and I am responsible for him buying this property. I feel like I am responsible for him not
Good work.
knowing the
in doing
rules
that.
and taking advantage of Mike, because Mike would have done all this work for us for nothing and it would have been great. He always does.
And this is where we want to foster this process,
Mhm.
that it works better for everybody.
Absolutely.
Okay. We don't actually, at least I should say, I don't, as a member of the commission, enjoy being in a position of looking at after the fact work and trying to do a workaround to try and make
Yeah.
it be a
And
little
coming up here
better.
isn't a good feeling either when
It's not.
we follow the rules by a T. It feels like you've done something wrong, because you have, and it's not the
Well,
best feeling in the world.
and you are in a position, as you described, that it took a long time for you to get to a point of purchasing this property, that you were looking at it over an extended period of time.
Should have done some more
So
research.
that looks to me like an opportunity, possibly on the part of ourselves of the city and possibly on your part as well, in terms of looking at what the ramifications of purchasing this historic property
Yeah.
are over that period of time. Certainly appreciate the need to quickly get this into a livable position, okay, and get that taken care of as soon as you had, purchase it, et cetera. But when we think about it, there's a lot of time that could have been, had an opportunity to do this. And so the reason I'm just talking about this is we'd love to get input in terms of, and you're obviously in a position of doing a lot of this, as you said, you work with Mike, et cetera. Do you have thoughts about how we as a commission or the city in general, in terms of how we approach these situations that you're in, that would have been helpful for you, and taking care of this before we're now then going to talk about, well, maybe we need to add some things to this to make it more historic, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely. One thing I think of is, so a lot of properties I've bought over the years, literally on the day I close, it seems as though code office, and I don't want to pick on Brenda, but I love Brenda. She'll call me and be, hey, Louis, we see you just closed on this property, you purchased this property, make sure you, and it's never been a historical thing. But the city seems to know the day we close on something. It would be nice if they had a relationship with and I know not everything is sold on the market, but these places that are sitting on the market for 243 days that are a historical building, it should be out there. First of all, the agent that sold it to us, who we love and who does a lot of projects around here too, that should be, this is a historical building for sale. Like when I start selling my historical buildings, I'm going to be proudly advertising them as historical.
As you should.
As you
should.
This is, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's nothing on you, but maybe there's something there that, you can look up every building that's on the market right now in Bangor. There's 20 or 30 historical, half of Broadway's on the market right now.
Talk to Brenda about what her process is.
Yeah, I don't know.
The way we get notified is every month we get from our GIS person a list of all the new sales in historic districts in the Pinjajawak. So then we send out letters. But even if we were to find out like the next day that a sale happens, like we would have to have that person's phone number, and we may not always have that. We just have the mailing address, and then USPS takes 2 weeks to get a letter out.
Sure.
We have that kind of problem.
Yeah, but that it's for sale, I guess, is the thing that.
But Anya, I was just going to ask this when you guys were discussing it too, and it was brought up. Why is code not doing that part? I mean, if they know the lot and they must know it's historic. Why couldn't they just be like, and just for the record, that you just purchased this it's in a historic district, or it is a historic house? But why wouldn't code do that?
He got the letter a couple weeks later, but we had a lift on the ground.
That was from us, right? That wasn't code. I think code should, like, Brenda, you're talking to Brenda should be like, hey, heads up, it's a historic house. I can see it. It's on her little chart thing.
Talk to her and see what her process is.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ultimately, I think it's on us. I mean, I'm going to take the fault for it.
Well, I think it's a combination of the issues. And I would make the comment, as we've discussed before, that at the point of sale is too late for the prospective buyers to have an understanding of this. We, of course, want prospective buyers to be excited about the historic property, but part of that is then to take the responsibility of the preservation process, which we are charged to, essentially enforce. And so that's where I'm putting this from that perspective of, as you made the comment, how many historic properties are for sale right now?
Sure. Well, and I think like that meeting that we're having in a couple of weeks or whatnot. I mean, I'm a real estate agent. I can pull up the MLS, and as we're going through that meeting, I see these districts I can tell you what's for sale which you might not be able to do because you don't have access to the MLS.
Nate, if I could, do we know if the city has a parcel viewer, which is based on GIS
Yeah, I
information?
use that a lot.
When you click on the parcel, there's additional information. If you hit it, doesn't it give a list of data about the
does it?
place? And I'm not sure, but it may.
We're always just
if it's
looking at lot
more.
lines, but yeah.
Well, I know.
He is down in there somewhere.
Might be in there that it's,
Website quite a bit,
yeah.
and I look at different houses, you can tell how many permits a house is when you look
Yep.
at that. I don't think I've seen
There is,
Oh, there,
yeah.
all right, maybe I just missed it.
Yeah, I mean, if you scroll, it can be easy to miss. So when you identify the parcel, it'll say, is it in a historic district or site? Yes or no? And then also you can turn on the layer of historic districts and sites and see it that way. So, yeah.
No, it's a really powerful tool for parsing out historic properties and districts.
If people don't know it's there, it's of no value.
Yeah, yeah.
I bet I spend more time than almost everybody on that.
You do spend a lot.
Just every night I'm on that. website. Exactly.
I have a question. So if a replacement is a one-to-one, that's just a staff review, correct? Instead of going to HPC?
You mean if they're replacing with the same materials and everything?
Yeah,
That actually doesn't even need any review because it is the same thing.
okay.
It's just very minor things, like,
So if he completely followed Mike's recommendation, would that mean it wouldn't need to come back to HPC? And that he would be all clear to just move forward?
well, I don't think what Louis has posed, I mean, you have to completely change the
Right, yeah.
trim, right? So I don't know if you would want to do that, but I mean, I leave it up to you, so.
Oh, to add the gutter system, we wouldn't have to change. Yeah.
So if it would match the previous design that as it was suggested, then that would mean that you
Look.
could move forward without having to
Yeah.
come back to us technically.
I'm fine coming back. I just want to make sure this part is.
In that way, that the system sort of incentivizes that one-to-one replacement, right?
Okay, any other questions or comments from the commission? We have anyone in the public or on Zoom? No? Oh,
Yeah, I want to kind of go off of what Peter was saying is that with these after the fact application, this is no indictment.
No worry, I get, hey,
That we got to a situation where we propose ideas and changes with these after the post hoc applications. And we say, come back to us in a month. And we never see them again.
Right.
And we need a remedy. for
Yeah.
that. So, I think, for me on this project, I think that if we're gonna evaluate it, we need to evaluate it in a way that if we never saw the applicant again, we'd be happy with the result.
I agree.
Yeah,
'Cause-
because that's no indictment on your.
Listen, 100%. I am on your team more than you probably realize, yeah.
We just ran into a problem with that with another.
Absolutely. Oh, I know. Yeah, I get it. There's some, I don't want to, I got to defend some of us developers too, where I've been in years past and Mike saw me cry up here before, like where I kept coming back and kept coming back, and it was costing me millions of dollars in that time spent. And at some point you just go, can't do this. I don't have millions of dollars, So this is not that case, but it can be on this side. It can be very, very tough sometimes, especially when it's 3 weeks, 4 weeks in the world of contracting in Maine. Feels like 10 years.
Our process by having more frequent meetings.
Well, you guys volunteer your time, so it's a tough all the way around, but it's hard. Yeah.
okay. Seeing as though there was no one in the public, no one on Zoom, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. And now it can be opened up to the commission for discussion amongst the commission.
So just to clarify, you're gonna come, or the gutter issue is not on the table tonight.
It's not part of the.
It's not part of the application. It's just what has already been done. Correct?
And apropos Matt's comments that, if we are approving what has been done, then we are putting a stamp of approval on that. And there is no specific requirement on our parts that anything else be done. And so in a sense, we're agreeing with what has been done, not agreeing with what might be added to make it more historic.
So with that, when Anya earlier spoke, saying that we could add caveats and say, maybe have the applicant come back with a gutter design if we can't stand, having this big white trim board up there, absent of the gutter, kind of, as Mike described, it really breaks up the facade of that house and adds so much detail. Just, it's such an elegant detail, that wooden gutter up there. I think it's really important to the structure on such a important home in town.
My opinion, looking at the picture, is that as a defining aspect of this, because it provides a framing for the rest of the structure in a way that gives a fine detail to really pop the rest of it in a sense. And what I mean by that is an historic aspect as a federal building.
Yes.
And I mean, I have to say, I hope the owner is excited about having the oldest brick structure in Bangor. This is a remarkable structure. And this is one of those things that, again, in partnering with you rather than being in opposition, we want to encourage people like you to be excited about this and looking for possibly other things that you could do as part of what you're doing.
And since this is a Federal Register property, we have a very high standard we have to try to maintain with this.
I do have a question about that. Is my understanding that structures on the National Historic Register must meet national exterior requirements for renovations as well?
Same standards that you review by.
I know, but does the National Register office delegate to us as the local historic commission? Okay.
You have the.
So in that sense, we are then instruments of the National Historic Register as well for this property.
You're reviewing it. Basically, the ordinance says you review all historic district and landmark structures. So, and you're using the same standards that the Secretary of the Interior recommends be used.
So by extension, if we're agreeing to this, then we are saying we think it matches the federal, and the federal does not take on any
Other.
any aspect.
No different.
Okay. That's good.
And you're saying, Peter, that this gutter is this defining characteristic of this architectural characteristic and historic characteristic of this home. It's also incredibly functional for this building to survive long-term.
You do realize there was no gutter on this building, correct?
Yes. And I housed the masonry.
You're trying to steer this into a completely different thing than what have been talking about all day. There were 2 aluminum downspouts from Lowe's attached to the front of the building on the right-hand side that were attached to nothing on the top. Be clear.
I guess I don't understand what you're saying. in
Well,
terms of
he's steering this, that there was a gutter that ran across the front of this when we bought this building, and they're absolutely saying no.
No,
No,
just
no.
in history, Lou.
From an historical perspective, that was part of the original aspect of the building. And unfortunately, part of the process here is when you apply to do something with the structure, it opens up that discussion back to the historic nature and what that represents.
But there's also a standard about changes taking place in the course of time. So
Common sense, all those things that you guys have been discussing for the past year.
I think 70.
I'm just curious, are you not interested in putting a gutter on the front again?
No, I am.
Okay, it sounds like you're not. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I want to come back and all kinds of new improvements, but regarding the trim that's up on the building, I want to go to sleep tonight feeling like I did the right thing,
Yeah.
knowing that I did the right thing for the citizens of Bangor and for this property.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I will say I can't looking at the level of decay on that had accumulated on the building. I can't say that is preserved, that is like would be a respectful preservation of history to leave that there.
And if I just went and painted it all white, what was there, the rot, it would look
Yeah,
like it does
That's
now.
true. That's true.
When you're
Actually,
painting white now when you drive by, because it's a brand new piece of trim.
the statutes actually require the owners to maintain, if there is a problem such as that, requires that be replaced and fixed. So it's not an issue of saying, oh, when they bought it, this is its condition, this is then the definition of its historic, a structure. And then, what are you gonna do with that? That's not what this is. So just to be clear, we're not going to the point of sale. We're talking about the structure and its historical aspects. And since they're making modifications, that those modifications meet the historic preservation guidelines.
Even if those or not modification, okay, yeah, the modifications, but you could never go back to what was there. You understand that, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't exist.
Yeah, well, and that's why there's room in the register standards and stuff for, new materials, things that are
Right.
aesthetically like kind, things like that.
Sure.
Because, what we don't want to be approving is applicant comes before us, we have a beautiful federal building and they want to turn it into something modern.
Oh, vinyl side this building or something.
Yeah.
I mean, but
Yeah,
vinyl,
something-
got vinyl, yeah.
That,
no.
that takes away and isn't part of the historic, character of the structure. So
I will say that we have the resource in the picture here of what that gutter looked like.
we
and-
do,
And the effect it has on the facade.
but I also don't believe necessarily the gutters are the question for tonight. It's important to discuss and something that,
Well, I appreciate that.
but I know what we're here trying to approve is what they've already done. But I do agree, and they've said they're going to come back in front of us. We definitely need to have that discussion.
We don't
about
know
the
that's
gutter.
going to happen, no offense, because as Matt said, we've had that.
Check
situation
my records.
multiple times in the past. We've had this issue where we bring up after the fact renovations, make our recommendations, and then we don't hear anything from them ever.
Well, also, some of the times that that's happened, it's been a minor revision as well. So minor revisions aren't going to come in front of us. The chair, I guess, just meets with Ann or you, right, and just signs off on it if it meets whatever the
Me,
standard is.
Brenda, and the chair.
Yeah. So,
From a process perspective, I would ask that if we have the discussion in the commission about these issues, and there are other things done that we are not aware of, that we do get feedback, so we understand that something has been done. That would be helpful, at least to close the loop from my perspective.
But I don't think that's
it
happened
doesn't make,
in recent memory.
I don't think it has either, and I don't think that's too big of an ask to basically like say in the meeting, we could say this minor business was attended to or something along those lines, just so that so they could say, oh, 62 High Street came and there was a minor revision for their project. Yeah. But at the end of the day, too, we've got to have faith that the applicants are going to do the right thing. That's all we can really do, Just got to have faith. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so cornice. The cornice is what we're talking about, not the gutters. So like that underneath the trim of the roof line or whatever. When you guys took off, and this is gonna sound so ignorant because I don't do any of this, but
Listen,
I paint it, I don't create it. So, the cornice, is it completely, did you have to rip off, I mean, there wasn't much left, but did you rip off the old wood and then put on this one, or is the wood underneath this?
Well, say, if you look at the pictures, I'm not sure if it's in the, I bet like half of the wood was there, so half of the wood, if not less, was there.
Did you maintain?
So that was removed so that we put up a 1x6, like nice PVC board across the whole thing. And that, the wood was removed so that the PVC board would sit flat.
Flat? Okay,
Where the existing board up.
okay. I was just,
The shape of it is not changed, it's exactly. what
Right.
we want. And again, there was only, like, he sent over a picture, I bet less than half of the board from
mhm.
18.
Right, okay. 'Cause I know there's like some stipulations about like, you can, if like the original is still intact underneath it, right? Am I not right, wrong?
Well,
So, no, I'm like, no, kind of helping you out.
one of the regulations states that whatever
Ryan.
is done
Mhm.
can be essentially taken away and not affect the integrity of the underlying structure. So if you have an underlying board, or that we're looking at that glass situation on one of the buildings downtown, that They covered over that, but they left that intact
Right,
underneath. So
exactly.
If in the future it was
Someone wants to
approved,
come back and do it.
then the historic aspect would, the original piece would still be there.
Exactly. That's what I was trying to get at. It's like
Yeah.
if there's a little original wood there, even like the molding of it to see how it like, if some of it was still there and somebody wanted to actually replace it with like kind, they could pass it that way.
I would assume that in this situation, there's no real way to maintain any piece of that and have any integrity for the fascia board that goes across. That would be my impression from this. Yeah.
Do it right.
Okay, there's no further.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's good. Discussion.
So if the discussion is complete, then we can move on to taking action on the proposal to approve, deny, or otherwise handle it. And so Anya, this is where we've got to do the long read.
Yes.
Okay, so this is my first time with all this. I want to make sure we do it right. So the procedural background, we're going to approve those 3 points. And then we will entertain a motion for each one of the parts. So part one, motion will be for part one, part two, then there'll be a motion for 1, 2, 3, and so on as it goes for each one of the parts. And then we get to the final decision, yay or nay, correct? Okay,
Also, if you feel that any of these standards aren't relevant, you can vote that they're not relevant. And if there's a standard that you feel is, you can vote on that too, so.
okay. Do these real quick. Okay. I will then entertain a motion for the procedural background. And when we're doing this motion, can we do all 3 points in a single motion, or do we have to do procedural background 1, vote, 2, vote, 3, vote?
You can combine the procedural background ones.
Okay, I'm just trying to find efficiencies to
Yep. Yeah.
streamline this a little bit. Okay. I would accept a motion combining the 3 points of the procedural background. If anyone felt moved to make such a motion.
As an associate member, can I make that motion? or-
No,
Check, that's what I wanted to check.
the voting member can.
Yes, that's fine.
I move that we approve the procedural background.
Mike.
Oh, sorry. I move that we approve the procedural background for the application of the General John Williams at 62 High Street.
I second.
Okay, it will be a roll call vote of the voting members, starting from my left with Katie.
Yes.
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 And I also vote yes. That the application meets the procedural background, that the application was deemed complete on December 11th, 2025. The applicant paid all applicable fees, and that the proposed project is a certificate of appropriateness. Okay. So moving on, we will move on to applicable provisions and findings. So what we will do now is I will ask for a motion for part one, that the project meets the evaluation standards of subsection 148-9A regarding general standards. And I will ask if the commission finds or does not find that, based on exhibits 2 through 5, the application satisfied Historic Preservation Code subsection 148-9 alpha A, requiring that any alteration of the historic structure will preserve or enhance its historical and architectural character. So, motion for that?
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So what is this compared to? Because does the improve the architectural character compared to what it was, what it was previously when it was built, when it was added to the register, or when it, or right before the alteration was made?
So it's asking if if what the applicant is requesting to do, or in this case has already done, if what they're doing is going to preserve the historic character of the structure, or if it's going to otherwise enhance that historic character. So if they were trying to take, the front of this building and cover it in vinyl siding, okay, right? Would that enhance or not enhance the historic character, or would that preserve the historic character? So that's
Yeah,
what
so
we're gonna-
compared to the before versus after, does it enhance the historical character and architectural character of it.
One might argue the historical character isn't a before or after.
All right, we're not getting into the weeds.
Inherent
of this.
inherent- It's an
Basically,
inherent
we-
aspect of the structure.
we want to ask is what they're doing, preserving the building, taking care of the building, and is it in line with the historical character of the building? So if it's a Victorian, is it remaining a Victorian, or are they turning it, or whatever the structure in question is? So. All right. We want to have a motion then for part one?
And just one clarification, this requires 4 affirmative votes?
Correct.
Can't remember. Or-
Historic
No,
preservation.
3 is for,
Certificate of appropriateness is 4 affirmative votes. Design review,
Is-
let's receive 3. Well, that's not my paper.
You can keep that.
Okay, prize. Okay, so try 3. Motion for part 1, applicable provisions and findings.
I move that we vote on part 1, section 1, that meets the standards of 148-9 regarding general standards.
City, Mr. Not Sizzling.
Subcheck.
Subcheck. I'm gonna call you something from Texas, one of these meetings. Do we need to read the entire point 1? So, for example, I make a motion that we find the commission, that the commission finds that blah, 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 blah.
I recommend that you indicate in the motion exactly what the motion is supposed to say. I mean, if you don't want to say all the words, you can make references, but I think that the recommendation is that the motion be made so that it expresses those words.
Okay,
Thanks. I will restate it. I move that the commission votes on part 1, section 1 of 148-9A regarding general standards, that the commission does not find that based on exhibits 2-5.
Hold on.
That was in there for your benefit. So you have to say whether you find or it doesn't find. You have to choose one.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's either a motion in the affirmative
Yes,
or in the negative.
Thank you.
Usually best in the affirmative.
All right, third try. I move that the commission votes on part 1, that the commission finds that based on exhibits 2-5, that the application satisfied historic preservation code 148-9A, requiring that any alteration of the historic structure will preserve or enhance its historic and architectural character.
is there a second?
Aye.
Okay, so we will do roll call vote, starting from my left. Okay.
No.
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 I vote. I guess I vote no as well. So the part 1 fails. 0. Okay, part 2, the project meets the evaluation standards of 148-9B regarding renovations, alterations, and repair. Would take a motion for part 2-1.
I move that the commission votes on part 2, section 1, that the commission finds that based on exhibits 2-3, the application satisfies historic preservation code 148-9B 2B, requiring that the rehabilitation work does not destroy the distinguishing qualities nor character of the structure and its environment.
Second,
Aye.
roll call vote.
Sorry, I'm just parsing.
If we need to dive into it, it's okay to ask.
Yeah, this is your first.
Yeah, this is your first. You're like, can we break this down? You know,
It's just destroy the distinguishing qualities or character of the structure. That's a larger statement than I really feel that this damage is doing.
A strong term, yes.
Yeah.
Very strong term.
I feel exceptionally petty saying no to that. that.
I mean, vote your conscience. You are empowered by the
Yeah.
council. to Vote your
And-
conscience.
And what we're trying to ask with it is, is based on the exhibits in front of us, is the application requiring that the rehabilitation work, that the work itself does not destroy distinguishing qualities or character of the building. So again, vinyl siding, what would that do to the building, right? Or, if those gutters, downspouts and stuff were still there and they ripped them off and as part of the renovation, that would, yes or no, does that destroy the character? So then you're asking yourself, does this PVC trim destroy? And if you feel it does, vote your conscience on it. If you don't, vote that as well. It's okay.
I'm gonna go with yes on this one.
Okay, I'll go with yes as well.
No.
Excuse,
Sorry, did,
Yep.
just make a point of clarification. Was the motion made that it does destroy or does not destroy? Does destroy, so was a motion made?
The motion was does destroy.
Okay.
The motion was does destroy. But I'd like to change my vote then.
Yeah.
Does not destroy.
My apologies.
Mhm.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
It does not destroy the distinguishing qualities or character of the structure.
So you're voting no on the motion?
I'm voting no, yes.
I would like to vote no as well.
I remain a no.
No.
And now you've got me confused.
The motion was not as it's written by Hahn.
Yeah.
What we're saying is the motion is saying that it does destroy the distinguishing qualities versus what's written on the page, which says.
Right. So a yes vote, you would be saying, yes, this does destroy. No, you're saying, no, this does not destroy. Okay, then I'm also voting no. Okay.
Sorry for the confusing language
Yeah.
on that one.
that's why it is typically best to use the fines, just so it's clearer what you're voting on, because it gets confusing with double negatives if you do does not bind, so.
Okay. All right, a motion for part two.
So this is a motion to the commission, a motion to find that based on exhibits 2 through 3, the application satisfies Historic Preservation Code 148-9B2C, requiring that while repair is preferable to replacement in the event that replacement of deteriorated architectural features is necessary, the new material should match the material being replaced in composition, design, texture, and finish.
Is there a second or any questions on the motion?
I second it.
So in this instance, a affirmative vote, you are finding that the application does satisfy 148-9B2C. A no vote is you are saying that it does not satisfy 148-9B2C. Okay. We're going to roll call vote, starting with you again.
I'm going to vote no. It does not satisfy.
No, it does not satisfy.
I'm a no as well.
No.
We'll vote yes. Okay. Motion for part two through.
Here, I'll do it this time. I motion that the commission find that based on exhibits 2 through 3, the application satisfies Historic Preservation Code Section 148-9B2D, requiring that distinctive stylistic features or examples of skilled craftsmanship which characterize historic structures is not damaged or destroyed wherever possible.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. In this case, if you vote yes, you're voting that the commission does find, based on the exhibits, an application satisfies 148-9B2D. A no vote is you're voting that no, it does not satisfy Historic Preservation Code 148-9B2D. right? Okay. Any questions? Oh, right. Roll call vote, starting with you, Katie. You know what? We'll start with Rebecca this time. Yeah, why not? Start with Rebecca. Change it up.
Um, uh, s- no,
No.
Yes.
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. Okay, moving on to part two, number 4. We will entertain a motion.
the commission finds, based on exhibits 2 through 3, the application satisfies Historic Preservation Code 148-9B2E, requiring that the changes which have taken place in the course of time have acquired historic significance in their own right and are retained and preserved wherever possible.
I don't.
I would entertain a motion on the applicability of this to this particular application.
I move that this section is not applicable to our findings for the rest of the application.
I second.
Then roll call vote from Rebecca.
So, yes, get rid of it?
Yes, it does not apply. No, it applies.
Okay, yes.
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 And I will also vote yes. We find that this is not applicable. Okay, part two, number 5. Take a motion.
The motion finds that based on exhibits 2, 3, the application satisfies Historic Preservation Code 148-9B2F, requiring that alterations to a historic building to create an earlier appearance not be undertaken except when qualifying as restoration under the Secretary of the Interior Standard of Restoration. I don't think this one applies as well.
I don't either. Let's make that motion.
I make the motion that this does not apply.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, starting with
I
Rebecca.
can start again. Yes.
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 I also vote yes. Number 5 does not apply. Okay. And go on to number 6. Part 2, number 6.
Yeah, I motion that the commission finds that based on rather based off exhibits 2 through 3, that the application satisfies Historic Preservation Code section 148-9B2I, requiring that wherever possible, all alterations to structure shall be done in such a manner that if they were to be removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the original structure would be unimpaired.
I second.
Okay, we have a second. We'll start with this one. If you vote yes, you're finding that based on exhibits 2 through 3, that the application, excuse me, satisfies Historic Preservation Code 148-9B2I. If you are voting no, you're saying that it does not satisfy subsection 148-92B or -9B2I. Okay. So we will start down there with you, Katie.
I vote yes, this finds that the application satisfies Historic Preservation Code 149.
Yay.
Yes.
To verify, that means that they have not done any damage that cannot be fixed, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
I also vote yes. Okay. So we will now move on to the final decision. I will entertain a motion on the final decision for the application from 62 High Street.
I motion that the commission find that the project meets the requirements for a certificate of appropriateness and therefore grants a certificate of appropriateness permit for the proposed project.
I second that motion.
Okay. In this instance, if you vote yes, you're voting that the project does meet the requirements for certificate of appropriateness and that it should be issued. If you vote no, you're saying this project does not meet the requirements and that the certificate of appropriateness should not be issued. Okay. Rebecca,
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
I will vote yes. Okay, so the decision fails 3-2. Yeah,
Yeah, because it does require 4 affirmative. Yeah.
Mr. Keebler, does this answer some of your questions from earlier? The process has gone through and there's zero knowledge.
oh. Okay. Upset because it's failed. Okay. So with that business being concluded, we have other business, item number 4 being the annual training, planning, legal, and Mike Pullen. The time is 8:10, so,
I'll have Dave do the legal training first.
okay.
Okay, so as I mentioned to all of you, I'm David Sevchek, the city solicitor, and I'll be doing some training tonight, going over some topics, and you can feel free to ask me questions. You can also ask questions at the end of a section or at the end of the whole thing. I'll definitely make questions available at the end of the presentation, but feel free to jump in and ask them whenever you'd like, if you'd like to. The first thing I wanted to cover in the handouts is kind of a smaller version, a shorter version of what I'm going to be talking about that kind of something that you can look at later if you want to. So one of the topics I'm going to be covering tonight is due process. So as a Historic Preservation Commission, you'll be sitting as a tribunal, as a decision-making tribunal. And as such, you're required to adhere to due process requirements under the Constitution. This means that the commission decisions need to be based on the information presented to them, and that the process used to make the decisions needs to be fair. Basically, it's kind of a shorthand version of it. We'll talk more about due process when we talk about the public proceedings requirements and the importance of avoiding ex parte communications when the commission is functioning as a decision-making tribunal, which you did tonight regarding the last item. But generally, the members of the HPC may not discriminate unlawfully against any person because of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, physical or mental disability, genetic information, gender identity, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, cultural group, or political status. There is a state statute, the Freedom of Access Act, that ties into some due process issues. The Freedom of Access Act, or FOA as we call it, is a two-pronged state statute that has two purposes. One is is that actions of public bodies should be taken openly. And the second purpose is that records of public bodies must be available to the public for inspection. Regarding the public records prong, any record that is in the possession of the city of Bangor or any public official, that would include you, that involves the business of the city, in your case, the business of the commission, is considered public unless a statutory exception applies, which makes it non-public. Because there are a number of statutory exceptions, I'm not going to go over them, but you should assume that any document or communication created or received by a commission member involving the business of the commission is a public record. Written communications include texts, emails, social media posts, and communications in electronic messaging systems or any other electronic communication regarding the business of the commission. Communications regarding the business of the commission should be considered a public record even if they are on your personal device. Staff recommends that you create a new email address for your position on the commission and use that for any and all communications. And also that you do not delete any communications, documents, or notes taken during commission meetings because they may be the subject of a Freedom of Access Act request made by a member of the public. The city may request to view your electronic communications involving any business of the commission in response to a citizen's FOA request. Regarding the public proceedings aspect of the Freedom of Access Act, commission hearings are public proceedings. As such, they must be advertised and open to the public, as tonight's meeting was. There are certain exceptions where executive sessions may be held. Executive sessions close the public proceeding, but are only allowed at a publicly noticed meeting by way of a motion to go into executive session, and only for certain reasons that are specified in the state statute. There are, I think, 7 reasons you can go into executive session, 6 or 7, but only a few of them would really involve the commission. Ones that you might be used would be consultation with the attorney regarding the legal rights and duties of the commission. That would be one of them. Discussion of information and records that is made confidential by statute. So if you have confidential information that you've received, if you want to discuss that confidential information, you can move to go into executive session and discuss it in private. It's not something that, so the other ones don't really apply to the commission. But executive sessions may be called only by a public recorded roll call vote of at least 3/5 of the commission members present and voting. A motion to enter executive session must cite the statute section that allows the body to go into executive session and the precise but brief nature of the business of the executive session without giving away, of course, the confidential stuff. Yes.
Dave, I have a question.
Sure.
For the Freedom of Access Act, how long do we need to retain our records for?
That is a good question. However, there are retention schedules, and those schedules differ depending on what kind of a record they're talking about. And I'm not prepared to answer that question. I would tell you to retain your records indefinitely until we tell you that. Because I don't know the answer to the specific. Some records you have to keep 2 years. Some records you have to keep. Some records you can destroy right away. So we recommend that you keep them while you're on the commission. And I can answer a specific question about specific records if you just.
Yeah, I tend to take notes on the packet, and those packets build up over time. I have a huge stack of them.
Right.
For my time. I just wanted to know if I could start parsing through them at all.
And I should know the answer to that, but I don't.
If
As
you
I
have a
sit here
second.
right now, I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, if you have a second in the next couple of weeks, would you let me know?
Yes, definitely.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah.
Can I ask a quick question about executive session?
Yes.
It sounded like from the process of this, that an executive session comes out of a regular commission meeting as a possibility of having an executive session called as a meeting to discuss a particular issue. You mentioned, for example, consultation with legal counsel about a legal aspect of the regulations or otherwise.
Yes.
So is that something that could be decided on before the meeting and say, our meeting tonight will be an executive session? Or because it has to be voted the way you described, does that have to come out of a session that's already started?
You have to notice up all of your meetings publicly.
Yep.
And there could be a meeting, hypothetically, that where the only item on the agenda is an item that you expect to go into executive session on.
I see.
Yeah. But don't worry, because if there is an executive session needed to be scheduled on your agenda, you'll get help to make the appropriate motion. We'll have the language needed for the motion, just as Anya had the language needed for your motions tonight regarding each of the elements that needed to be satisfied. So when you're in executive session, no other matters may be considered and no official actions may be voted on during executive session, other than to come out of executive session. I want to talk a little bit about ex parte communications that tie into both Freedom of Access Act and due process. In fact, under the commission's bylaws, specifically section 4.1, ex parte contacts, and what that means is contacts outside of a public commission meeting between any commission member and the applicant or the applicant's representative regarding the subject matter of the application are not permitted. There are certain exceptions where the chair can contact regarding procedural matters or with regard to, whether somebody can attend a meeting, to schedule the meeting. But generally, you can't talk to the applicant about the subject matter of the application outside of a public meeting. You should also not discuss, the bylaws don't say this specifically, but you also shouldn't discuss outside of a public meeting the subject matter of the application with someone who's an opponent of the application. The discussions that you should have should be presented by the applicant or by any opponents to the application and talked about at the meeting. Okay. You also you shouldn't conduct site visits without public notice and convening the commission. And that's in your bylaws. And when we're talking about communications, this was, of course, include texts, emails, and social media communications as well. It also, the commission's bylaws at section 4.2 also specify that you may not discuss pending commission matters with each other outside of commission meetings. So members of the commission should avoid discussion of substantive matters pertaining to an application verbally outside of a commission meeting or by email, text, or social media, or even by letters, if anybody does that anymore. You may discuss issues regarding pending matters with city staff, though. Those are not ex parte communications. So the combination of the due process requirements in the Constitution and the Freedom of Access Act requirements that come together, and members of the commission should be presented with information at their meetings. They should not go to outside sources to further research applications that are before them. There are both due process reasons and Freedom of Access Act reasons for this. For example, due process, if one person outside of a meeting gives you a piece of evidence, the other side hasn't had a chance to have their say on that piece of evidence. That is a due process problem. It is also a Freedom of Access Act problem because it isn't occurring in a public meeting. So those are the two types of reasons why you shouldn't be doing outside research. Yes.
I just have a hypothetical question. So let's say someone hands you that piece of evidence. What's the right thing to do do you report that to the city? What would you do in that case?
You shouldn't accept any evidence from anybody.
Like if you letter.
Someone sends it to you, you could send it to staff.
Okay.
All right,
If we got an email from someone, we could forward that on to staff.
that you did not solicit.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, forward it to staff. All right.
Would that then be included in the agenda materials?
It depends on what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Right? Yeah, okay. Um, so if the HPC members have any questions or concerns, they can be brought up in the public meeting to the applicant or to staff. This ensures, and conversations with staff can occur individually outside of the meetings. This is to ensure that decisions of the commission are made openly and are based on information presented to the HPC in public. Okay? Now, your bylaws, when they talk about the procedures that you use, they say that you would default to the democratic rules of order, which to me is great, as opposed to defaulting to Robert's rules of order. In my opinion, I read the whole entire democratic rules of order in an hour, and they are written in a modern way, and I like them. And so I'm going to go over some of the aspects of those rules of procedure. Fairness and good order are the underlying principles. The final authority is the majority of voting members, provided a quorum is present, subject always to any applicable, what is referred to as higher law, which means state law, city charter, city ordinance, or HPC bylaws. There has to be a quorum in order for the commission to operate, and the HPC's bylaws require 3 members for a quorum, including the associate members can be counted as part of that 3. That's section 5.2 of the bylaws. The bylaws, that same section, also provide that if there is no quorum present at a duly noticed meeting, but one or more members are present, the members may open the meeting for the sole purpose of continuing all agenda items to another date set by those members who are present.
Good question. If a
Yeah.
quorum's 3, but we require 4 yes votes for passage, then, and that's for something other than design approval, right? That means that even if we have a quorum of 3, we certainly can't address an application that requires 4 yes votes.
That's right. In fact, if there are less than 5 voting members able to vote, and tonight there were 5, the applicant should be given the option of continuing the matter to a later date. Let's say there are 4 present.
Why don't we just make the quorum 5?
It would probably be impossible to get work done. I think the smoother change, would be to change the number of affirmative votes. And I've just been thinking that as we're looking at ordinance updates, we may do like a round 1 of ordinance updates, and it would include this thing because I feel like this is more of an issue. And then we can do further updates later on. I think changing the number of affirmative votes required is going to be the best option.
Or, so that's something that you all can discuss at another
That's
time.
fine. I just,
So in formal meetings, and I believe that an application in front of you would be considered a formal meeting, the chair guides impartially, as you did tonight, without taking part in discussion except to guide the discussion in an orderly fashion. If on rare occasions the chair has relevant brief information, the chair may depart from this rule, but the chair should generally avoid showing any bias. If the chair needs to participate actively in a discussion during a formal meeting, arrangements should be made for another member to fill the chair position until the motion has been voted on. In informal proceeding, parts of your meetings, the chair can participate in the discussions like other members. The chair should not make a motion. Generally, it's preferable that a motion be worded affirmatively and should not conflict with any higher law. That's not something that, but each motion generally requires a seconder in order for a vote to be taken. Under the democratic rules of order, a mover's privilege allows the mover to reword or withdraw a motion before it has been voted on, provided there is a seconder and not more than 1 member objects. Rewording can be continued until the motion is as perfect as the mover, assisted by the members, can make it. If 2 or more members object prior to the reading out of the reworded motion, changes can be made only with a motion to amend. So in other words, you don't have to make a formal motion to amend a motion unless somebody objects to you doing that. Okay? An amendment to a motion can delete, substitute, or add words to a motion on the floor, but must not negate the motion or change its topic. And an amendment to a motion cannot be amended. So only one amendment per motion, according to Democratic rules. For a motion to pass, a quorum must be present and more than half of the votes cast must be affirmative, unless a higher law provides a specific number of votes are necessary for the motion to pass. Higher law meaning certificate of appropriateness under the ordinance says you got to have 4 votes, not just a majority. In order for a certificate of appropriateness to be approved, there's got to be 4 affirmative votes.
Quick question about the motion.
Yes.
I don't know if it's Robert's rules or what it is, but is there an option for someone to move the motion? Meaning there may be ongoing discussion and back and forth and back and forth. And somebody says, I would propose we move this motion and stop discussion.
That is a Robert's Rules thing. I
Okay.
think you can still do it here.
Okay.
I don't know if it's mentioned in Democratic Rules of Order, but the idea is, we've talked about this a very long time. Let's do the motion. I move the motion.
And
Yeah.
at least in other meetings I've been in, when you move the motion, then everybody votes about the moving the motion. And then you go ahead and
And then,
then
right,
vote.
right.
I
That's
feel like that could kind of fall under the chair trying to guide the discussion or keep the
Yes.
discussion. Maybe the chair could be like,
right.
we've talked about this enough. Let's get on with it.
I wanted to discuss the number of votes. You know, when you take a vote on an application, you're voting on all of the relevant criteria. And if an applicant has to satisfy all of the applicable criteria in order for, say, a certificate of appropriateness to pass, if during your motions, the applicant hasn't satisfied an element, then the vote at the end should be no. Because a yes vote at the end doesn't make sense if all of the elements weren't satisfied. Now, if there's an element where there's 5 votes and the vote was 3-2, that element was satisfied. Okay? Even though there weren't 4 votes, even though you're talking about a certificate of appropriateness, you have to get 4 votes in order to make the final vote on the certificate of appropriateness. But an element might pass with 3.
Oh, I didn't know that. So.
Yeah.
That's a majority or that's a 3?
Well, no, it's a majority.
Okay.
Right. Tonight, there were 5 votes, so there was one element that was voted 3-2 that it passed that element. But there were other elements that were voted that
Right.
Way
that
down.
it did not pass.
David, should that not have been cited in the final vote? That this application will be denied based on this inability to meet sections, blah, blah, blah.
What happened was the final vote was 3-2, and so it failed. Had the vote been 4-1 with the same votes on the elements, I would have asked the chair for a point of order.
Hmm.
Because the vote wouldn't
Should.
make logical sense with the other.
So
votes.
if we're approaching the decision, then should we not be also offering the applicant? So we talk about that in the preamble here about, if you think your application is going to fail, you can withdraw and, adjust your application and resubmit. Should we not be offering them that opportunity prior to
The final vote.
the final decision?
I
For
heard,
example, like,
I heard you make that offer to the applicant.
well, that was at,
Well, that was
Not at
that was
the
at the
end.
beginning, but not at the end. I mean,
Definitely say it to the applicant at the beginning of the meeting.
Right, but they're
Right.
not gonna understand the procedural process here as to, at what point can they say, oh, it doesn't sound good? Is that
Well,
the discussion or is it?
and that's one of those things where I feel like if we're giving them that opportunity before we get to the decision, because when I'm telling them in the preamble, this is what you can do, if they're hearing all sorts of chatter about different things and window muttons and gutters and things like that, they might come to that realization on their own, like, oh crap, maybe there's some more stuff we need to do. And then they should be given that, at least I believe, anyway, they should be given that opportunity before the final decision, applicant John Doe, based on the discussions, as you have heard, some of these have failed. and it may be unlikely that your, certificate of appropriateness might pass. Do you wish to consider withdrawing and resubmitting for a future meeting?
And yeah, ideally, I think that would be a nice thing to do.
Right. I mean, I think it's nice, but is it?
Procedurally, is that okay?
It is
Can-
okay.
Okay.
Well,
And I,
Wait.
go ahead.
no, well, I was just gonna say, this- what I was gonna talk about in my training, but, and I tried to say before, like, if you feel like you're gonna vote no on a standard, see if you can ask the applicant to come back with alterations that might meet your approval. Unless you feel like he does need to do a whole new application, then maybe withdrawal is best, but if he could just come back with changes to his
We
application.
actually discussed that and he said, no, I don't want to do that.
Well,
He did say
I
that.
think I thought he was kind of confused about what I was saying. That's why I tried to clarify, but maybe he didn't want to.
So, I think the idea being, if he decide, if he's given that option and he decides to withdraw it, is he saving an application, an extra application fee?
Or whatever what's the right term? Yeah, because because we've had that in the past where someone has said, hey, I'm gonna, move this to the July meeting because it's May and they want, June to work on the application. I don't want to say withdraw if that means, oh, then I got to pay another 50, $60. Whatever the proper term is, I could say if it's, do you wish to
Continue.
ask for a continuance or to modify your application or?
Yeah, I mean, what the procedures of the planning board is you would vote to continue it to a date
Continue
certain.
it as opposed to withdraw is really the way it should be worded. Because that way the application is still before you and there wouldn't need to be another fee paid.
So they can amend it. Because if you're gonna hold over there, the whole idea here was that if he had said, oh, I'll just add to this, my application that I'm going to put, appropriate fascia boards up or whatever, or
Mhm.
cornice up. I mean, then he would have to amend.
He could request that the application be, that the consideration of the application be continued so that he may amend,
Okay.
and then
That would-
you would vote on whether to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to verify, you said that if he's failed any part of the beginning section, the part 2, then the decision we can't approve?
There are, in order to get a certificate of appropriateness, he has to satisfy certain elements. Those elements were set forth in each of the votes. The only vote that didn't really set forth the elements was the procedural thing at the beginning.
Okay,
The historical background, is that what we were calling it?
okay,
That one wasn't an element.
okay.
But after that, each one of those was an element.
Mhm.
The ones he didn't have to satisfy were the ones that you voted were not applicable,
Okay,
okay? But the ones that are applicable, in order to get a certificate of appropriateness, each element has to be satisfied.
okay.
It did strike me as
So-
we were doing this, that first one that we voted on, not
Mhm.
the three, that I got the application stuff, but
Mhm.
the one of content, everybody voted down.
Mm.
My thought was, well, why do we go forward from here? Because we already have said this is inappropriate. See what I'm saying?
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
Is there any real point in going through the rest of it? Is my customer question?
you could at that point, I suppose, in theory, ask for a final vote anytime one element isn't satisfied, but it's usually recommended to go through the elements.
Okay.
Here's just here's how lawyers think sometimes. Let's say the commission votes that 3 elements weren't satisfied.
Mhm.
He appeals it and it ends up in court. And there ends up being some problem with one or more of the votes. If you've got 3 elements that weren't satisfied, then it might be harmless error and it wouldn't be overturned.
Sure.
Whereas if you just stop after one vote, and if there's some problem with that, then it could end up getting reversed and sent back to you.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note in the bylaws, there's 2 options here. You can approve with conditions, and you can also approve an amended application. And it says, it would happen in one meeting. So if they wish to amend it during the meeting, you could approve the application as amended. Although it does say, provided the amendments are sufficiently minor so that notice isn't required to abutters. So that'd be kind of up to your judgment.
That all makes sense.
So at the end of this discussion, for the final vote, if someone had moved to say, I move that this be accepted with these provisions. That's an okay way to do that. That's a way to make an amendment sort of, and that brings it to the applicant and says, this is what we would want to have. We're gonna approve this, but you have to do these things.
Yes.
Conditionally?
A conditional, is that? what I
I'm
get?
sorry,
So can you read what you just wrote?
Yeah,
again?
so you can do an approval with conditions.
An approval with conditions.
Yep,
And I presume that's the approval at the final stage, right?
yes.
The last thing. And so
if you wanted to put conditions in, you'd put those conditions in that final vote.
in
Right.
that
Or
motion,
you could put them in a
And
previous.
You,
How
it says-
detailed would we have to be with those conditions? Could we just say we would like him to follow the recommendations that were placed forward by the consultant?
Yep, you could.
I think you would need to vote to require it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It also says any conditions attached to an approval must relate to an applicable approval standard and be designed to address specific concern. When I first read that, I was thinking you needed to make the condition on the,
final.
when you're making the motion on the approval standard, but I think like Dave said, it could just be at the end.
You know, let's say you went through 4 elements and on 2 of the elements, you voted, you made your motion. I move that the applicant satisfied this element with these conditions. And then let's say so on 2 of the votes, you voted that there need to be conditions. Then on the final vote, you could say, I move that the applicant satisfied the elements so that the certificate of appropriateness can be issued with the conditions as stated in the motions.
Or you could just add at the end.
Or you could add them at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is the option procedurally. Someone making the motion can say, oh, we've had this discussion. This guy really needs a cornice on this board,
Right.
you know, and then we will approve this with a condition that an appropriate cornice of OG, relief or whatever be added.
Which would be preferred going forward, setting it up so that we can let them take a pause and come back to another meeting, or approving with a condition? Like, which of those is going to make this move faster for them? And also, would they have to accept our conditions? What if they said that they did not want to meet those, or they wanted to go back? Sorry.
Yeah, I think.
How would we set that up?
They would have to accept the conditions, because I know we've had business in the past where we have recommended conditions and the
Okay.
applicant was not amenable
All right.
to those conditions.
So then they would pull the application back and then
Or they
redo
would
the
say-
application?
They would say, no, I want you to proceed with this application as it is because
Okay.
X, Y, and Z.
Okay.
Yeah, but
They'd rather
also,
I mean,
have the no?
you could, in theory, put the conditions on. And if the applicant doesn't follow those conditions, then it's a code enforcement issue.
Yeah, we've also set conditions that the applicants had absolutely no problems with, and it's been a really smooth process.
Yeah.
Just while we're in this conversation, I want to circle back to what Nate originally started us with, was the adding the out before the final decision, and I think that we really should give that out again. Because,
Yeah.
when he's reading this preamble, that could be an hour and a half before we actually take this vote. And people who are not familiar with the process might not have that in the front of their mind
Absolutely,
anymore.
because as an applicant, I'd be like, well, where do I step in if I don't like what I'm hearing? Is it now too late because the vote's about to happen or whatever? I mean, I think that priming that would.
And I also think maybe adding something in the preamble too, to the effect of, before we approach the final decision on the application,
Right.
if you feel like it is not going to pass, you can request insert language here, I would like a continuance to the next meeting or to your, March 2026 meeting, so I can address some of the concerns that were brought up by commission member, whatever they want to do.
Or amend the application.
Or amend the application based on comments, what have you. 'Cause I think we've seen that in the past as well with an applicant where they were said, hey, we want to continue this because there's been some good comments. We want to readdress this, go back to the design, whatever.
Yeah.
But I think that's important that we give the applicant that chance because, they don't know what's going to happen when I'm talking about this in the preamble, but if we're halfway through these, subsections on part 2 or whatever, and they might be like, this is feeling a little squirrely, maybe we need to go back and re-examine this. I want to at least give them that opportunity because it's,
Yeah.
saves them $50.
I just wanted to note too, in the bylaws, if you all felt like you needed to do this over again, I'm not saying you do, but if you did, you can reconsider a motion, but it has to be within 10 days of your vote. So I'm just,
Anya, could we also, just a separate thing, could we get, or could I get a copy of the bylaws to all of the commission members?
Yep.
Both the voting and associate members as well.
yes.
'Cause I think it would be good for us all the time to have a chance to review those.
Okay. Sorry if you didn't get those before. I had given them to the new members and I.
No, I'm sure I have them
Yeah.
buried somewhere in my inbox if they hadn't already been
Okay.
FOIA'd, but
I'll send them.
I just think it's just good to have that as a refresher, and I know I want to make my own master chair document so that I have things in front of me, because there's things I didn't even think of tonight that I probably should have addressed, and, you know, certainly didn't. I'm
You
sure.
did you did a good job.
You did fine.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna move on if you don't.
Yes,
mind.
please, I'm sorry.
Members should discuss only one motion at a time. A member should not take more than a fair share of the floor time, nor interrupt another member except as allowed with a point of order. A member who believes that a law or the meeting's good order is being breached may rise and say, point of order. The chair then rules on the point that is made by the member, either correcting the situation or explaining why it is in order. If the chair declares the situation is in order, the member may request a vote on the point of order. First, the member and the chair briefly explain their reasons, and with little or no further discussion, the chair calls for a vote on the point of order. The majority of the members then decide the point of order. That would be the voting members. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the code of ethics. City of Bangor has its own code of ethics. And by the way, there is one rule in the Democratic Rules of Order that, and if you ever decide to read them, that directly conflicts with something in the city's code of
Uh-oh.
ethics, okay?
Uh-oh.
And the members of the HBC are required to comply with all the provisions of the city code, including its code of ethics. So this is a default position. So if the city code says something different, you got to follow the city code. And the Democratic Rule of Order that I'm talking about, that should not be followed, is the rule that says a member who would benefit personally from a decision may participate in the discussion, but should voluntarily refrain from voting. The city's code of ethics, section 3311A, states that no commission member may participate in the deliberation or vote, or otherwise take part in the decision-making process on any agenda item before the commission in which the member or a member of his or her immediate family has a financial or special interest other than an interest held by the public generally. So that's a standard conflict of interest provision that has to be followed from the code. So if a member wonders whether he or she has a financial or special interest in an agenda item other than an interest held by the public generally, that member should disclose the potential conflict. And if the commission, after questions and deliberation, votes by a majority vote, votes that member does indeed have a conflict, that member should immediately remove himself or herself from the meeting room, should not participate in the decision-making process, and should not return until deliberation and action on that item are completed.
When do you disclose? When you get the packet? When you're in the meeting?
You want to disclose before any substantive consideration of the matter. In fact, if you know that you have a potential conflict with regard to an application, I think you should disclose it before the applicant even starts speaking, before you take on that particular agenda
But
item.
it would have to be in the meeting because the commission votes whether you have the conflict or you don't.
Right. And if for some reason you don't think of it until you're in the middle of the meeting, then you can disclose it when, ideally you want to realize it before any substantive participation. But if it's already underway and then you're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize, then you'd bring it up as soon as you think of it.
Just want to say typically in the past, it's brought up when the chair introduces an item before we get to the procedural background.
Yeah. Okay. So a financial interest defined in section 33-2 of the city ethics code. Financial interest is defined as a direct or indirect interest having monetary or pecuniary value, including but not limited to the ownership of shares of stock. Now, I mentioned about whether you have the interest or whether a member of your immediate family has the interest, that's defined in, immediate family is defined in section 33-2 as spouse, domestic partner, parents, children, or siblings, including step, half, and in-law relations. So if you have a financial interest or a special interest is a little bit harder to define than a financial interest. That is defined, special interest is defined as a direct or indirect interest having value peculiar to a certain individual or group, whether economic or otherwise, which value may accrue to such individual or group as a result of the approval or disapproval by the commission, and which interest is not shared by the general public. An example would be one of the members of the commission is an employee of a company that is before the HPC. Okay, so the recommended process for doing conflicts of interest is this. A member discloses the conflict that the member believes it may have to the commission prior to any discussion on that agenda item. The commission discusses the details and questions and questions the member so that the commission has a clear understanding of the specific facts that may or not constitute the conflict. So I would encourage you, staff encourages you to ask specific detailed questions of the member, to bring out the specific factual details of the matter so that the commission is clearly informed before taking any vote on the potential conflict. The members of the commission, other than the one with the potential conflict, vote on whether the member has a financial or special interest with respect to the agenda item. If the majority of the voting members vote that the member does have a conflict, that member immediately removes himself or herself from the meeting room, does not participate in the decision-making process, and does not return until deliberation and action on the agenda item is completed. Any questions on that?
Oh, yeah. I guess that this is a big issue in the sense of determining what the, financial and pecuniary value you're talking about is in what sort of situation. This was a big issue for the application we had that went on for over a year, in which there was discussion as to whether a member of the commission had a conflict of interest. It was brought up by that person. The commission voted that that person did not have a conflict. And then later, another member, myself, brought up my concern that I was renting space to the company that the other person works for. Okay, it was voted as not having conflict, but I was voted as having conflict because I was renting space to that company. But my issue there had to be with the consistency of this, and though we are not a court, my presumption is that if you get to a court situation and there is inconsistency in the commission's voting as to what is a conflict or is not a conflict, that may be fodder for the attorneys to essentially upset the apple cart of the proceedings of the commission because they weren't being internally consistent in making the decision about conflicts for a commission member that may have voted against the individual. Okay.
I'm not going to give a legal opinion on whether past votes were consistent or inconsistent.
Okay.
I will say, though, that it is important for the commission to get it right on a conflicts issue by asking specific questions about the facts so that you have a clear understanding of what the relationship is before you take your vote on whether there's a conflict or not.
Not asking for a past issue, looking to the future. The concern of conflict in this issue was involvement in a company doing restoration work. Okay, which of course the vast majority of people coming in here are doing a restoration process with a company that's going to do it. Maybe they're doing it themselves, but a company. The question I have is it a direct conflict right out of the box or someone sitting on the commission or advising the commission that does the same work that an applicant's representative does? Is that a conflict? I mean, historically in this commission it hasn't been, I can tell you that. But I'm asking in the future as we look at this because I feel that I need legal thoughts as to what conflict really means in real life, because if that is true, that we are in a conflict with people on the commission that do the same work that applicants are coming to ask about, then we have a problem with who's on the commission.
I would be glad to have a conversation with you
Yes.
about conflict situations, but
Okay.
I'm not gonna give a legal opinion on a future one either.
Okay.
I mean, every
Well-
situation, it's done on a case-by-case basis. So
Okay.
when the applicant's there, if somebody feels they may have a conflict on that, then they bring it up. And I can't say, you know, hypothetically in the future, if this applicant comes in and the business, you know, I just don't want to go down that road. I mean, but I'd be glad to have a long discussion with you about conflicts issues.
I mean, I think I would like to have that because I still am unsure as to whether I have a conflict or I don't. In my situation, coming forth with anyone that comes in, asking to do restoration work, that is having the restoration work done and is representing them in their presentation, that is either the group that I rent space to or someone that I don't.
Well,
See what I'm saying? It's
the
just-
answer to the question is, do you have a financial interest in the outcome of the commission's decision that is different from what the general public has?
It's kind of a gray area. I mean, if the company that rents my space goes under and doesn't pay me rent because the competing person's getting this work,
Well,
I don't, I mean.
that's why we bring it up to the commission and the
You
commission
just don't want
votes
to
on
have to bring it up every meeting. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But I guess my point is, do I then bring this up at every meeting to say, is this a conflict?
I mean, I think you bring it up if that particular company falls somehow. Of us. If, you know, it's not that company, it's Joe Schmo Incorporated, then it's not an issue.
Well, it was an issue.
Right. But that's past.
Okay.
We're talking a case by case basis. And, you know,
I'm just trying to be consistent, and have an understanding of what this is, and particularly for our new members, because I have no idea what their situation is.
sure, but I'm just saying that just for this in particular, that, you know, it's a case by case basis. And if that particular company that rents your space is not in front of us in any shape, fashion, or form, or is not in any way involved with the business in front of us, then it feels like it's a moot point. If they are, then it's okay. Yes, I need to bring.
Oh,
this
and I would
up because-
appreciate that totally. My issue is just the issue that they're in competition with the group here.
I guess it's the question, how far does a special interest go?
That's where I'm having trouble with this. I didn't think I had any conflict.
In this,
I wanted to be transparent when I brought it forward, and the group thought I did.
you
So-
want to think financial in this kind of a scenario.
And is financial defined as a specific monetary value, or is it, you know, 1 cent and above? Is that?
Financial interest is defined as a direct or indirect interest having monetary or pecuniary value.
Other than the general public.
Yeah,
Right. So if he's getting even, you know, $1 or whatever out of that, it's considered a financial interest. Right. I'm just trying to think plain language, you know, because I'm a knuckle dragger and I need to think plain language. So,
I mean, I certainly don't see that, I think I would have a conflict of interest if the company that rents space from me is representing an applicant here.
mhm.
I think that's a direct conflict. I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. My question is, when you remove that one more step and the company that's renting from me and paying me rent is in competition, that company could be argued has some stake in whether that gets approved or doesn't, because their competition will get that job or they won't.
And so
See what
you
I'm
would
saying?
bring that up, explain it to the board,
Okay.
to the commission, and they would discuss, ask
Okay.
you any questions, and then vote on it.
Okay.
And if they vote you don't have a conflict, then that's the determination. That's part of your duties, commission member.
and I think moving forward too, we ask before we start any business, does anyone on the commission suspect they may
Oh, that's
have a
good.
conflict of interest? And if no one says anything, cool, proceed on.
I think that's.
And if they do, then okay, let's approach this, bring it up, debate it, whatever, then
All right.
vote, move on. So I think that's a good way to move forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm gonna just talk a little bit quickly about motions and fact findings. Staff is here to facilitate the commission's work, and I know specifically that Anya has important experience regarding the appropriate and recommended forms of motions when it comes to the commission's making factual findings and written decisions. She has experience on the planning board doing that. They have to do that a lot more than your board does in terms of just the sheer numbers of having to do that. So I would recommend, the staff would recommend that you allow staff to assist when needed so that your motions and written decisions will have the best chance of withstanding scrutiny in the event of an appeal to the Board of Appeals and or to a court of law. The legal department is also available to assist in this regard when requested. So economic hardship. Section 148(9)(E1) of the Historic Preservation Commission, the ordinance states that the HPC may issue a certificate of appropriateness where standards for a certificate of appropriateness are not necessarily met if the failure to issue the certificate would result in undue hardship to the owner of the property. And there are 3 standards for the commission to vote on, should this come up. The 3 elements are whether the property can yield a reasonable economic return or the owner cannot make any reasonable use of the property without a certificate of appropriateness being issued. Reasonable economic return under the HPC ordinance does not mean a maximum economic return, or any reasonable use does not mean the highest and best use. So that's not always an easy standard to agree on, but that's the standard, okay? It's not the best economic return or maximum. It's just a reasonable economic return or reasonable use. The second element, or a second element, is whether the plight of the owner is due to exceptional or unique circumstances and not to the general applicability of the historic preservation chapter of the code. And then the third one is whether the conditions or circumstances which constitute the hardship were caused or created by the property owner after the property became subject to the historic preservation chapter. So if the property owner did this himself or herself, that element wouldn't be satisfied, okay? So anyway, do you have any questions about anything?
I'm just curious, you said that's 148-9E1. And it regards certificate of appropriateness, was that not included? Why was that not included in the our applicable provisions and findings tonight?
I didn't think it was applicable, but again, if you all have a standard that you think is applicable, you can vote to add it in there.
Okay.
Dave, I had one
Yeah.
last question for you. When I started on the commission, we had legal representation at every meeting. I think it was the assistant solicitor. I forget her name. She was a woman. She was really very helpful.
Brittany?
Brittany.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we could have representation with us? Because like you amended my order that I messed up, and that was really helpful. So having that legal representation here, I think could really assist us through this process.
The legal department has 2 attorneys, and one of us can be here anytime that you request us to be here. That's how we have it right now. The current assistant city solicitor is Grace Ennis. And she does a great job, and we really like her. And I want her to stay with us. So the arrangement is, we will be here to cover it whenever you request us to cover a meeting.
How far out would the legal department like that?
Just give us some advance notice is all. Anya can just ask us, we work in the same building. You know,
I mean, I just want to make
in theory, she could ask us the day up, but I don't really want her to do that.
right, and that's what I was about to avoid. I'd like to give you a reasonable chance. Be like, oh, yeah. I got
If you think there's a
baseball game.
proceeding that's particularly difficult or whatever, you know, just ask and one of us will be here.
Could we have maybe training wheels for the next meeting, at least one more meeting, to make sure that we're doing this correctly?
Do you want, are you, you know, if you want to ask that we cover the next meeting, is that what you're asking? We can
Please.
cover the next meeting.
Please.
Yeah, okay.
Quick question, going back to the financial thing, I'm trying to get the wording in terms of if there's not going to be a reasonable return or the property will not have a reasonable return, exactly what that wording was. But I guess the concern I have just about that is how does one determine that? I know that it's a judgment call in terms of how you're looking at things, but you know, one of the big problems we have with historic preservation and of course in Bangor is that you don't have a, you know, deep economic base for people to draw upon to help with the cost of restoration work and preservation work, which is expensive. You know, so from that perspective, we're always at odds with trying to meet what the statute says and, you know, the requirements that we have here versus the practicality of what it may cost for the owner to do. I'm not sure how, if I'm reading that or hearing that statement correctly, that if there is not expected to be a reasonable return in terms of the value of the property for the work that's being done, is that then what I'm hearing is the exception for the financial issue?
Hardship has 3 elements to satisfy. That's one of the elements.
Oh, so it's all 3 it has to.
All 3 have to be satisfied
Okay.
in order to prove a hardship case. And there's actually two different prongs on the, not prong, 2 different wordings on that prong. It's the property cannot yield a reasonable economic return, or the owner cannot make any reasonable use of the property.
Okay.
So if they can prove either of those 2 things,
But then I also have to meet the other requirements.
yes, the other
Okay.
2 have to be satisfied. So, you know, this is a case about a hardship request. And there was a big piece of property. And based on a lot of factors that I'm not going to go into, it was decided that the only place on this giant property to build a house, if the variance isn't, the requested variance, this is a variance case, it wasn't a
Okay,
certificate of
right,
appropriateness,
right.
was granted, would be a 17 by 20 foot space, which was like some really, really small percentage of the property. That would, and the court in this case, the Supreme Court of Maine, decided that that prong of the hardship, which is a very similar prong to what's in our ordinance, was satisfied. Because it wasn't, the court didn't find that it was reasonable for this person to have to build only on a 17 by 20 foot footprint, given the specifics of that particular piece of property, that wouldn't be a reasonable economic return. So, but it's another one of those things where it's a case by case thing.
Well, you know, I'm saying this is not a big reasonable economic return. Okay, I'm saying this because here's my evidence. Here's item A, item B, item
The
C.
applicant bears the burden of proof
Yeah.
with regard to each element. If
Because
the
we-
applicant doesn't
Okay.
provide, doesn't satisfy the burden
Yeah.
of proof, then they're not satisfied.
Yeah, because we have to act on the evidence that's before us, not on, only on the evidence that's before us. So if an applicant gives us too much information, that's great, 'cause now we have more information to act on. If they just give us a couple of items and then they're just saying, well, trust me, bro, it's, you know, this, that, or the other, then we can't act on that. Like, we have to act on whatever the evidence is that the applicant has given us. I think it's good to call out that hardship thing, but I feel like maybe moving forward in the voting provisions and findings, we may want to make sure we have that in there.
I don't know that
If
we
it-
need to
we?
include it every time. I think that.
I mean, we could vote that if it doesn't apply, that's.
You can.
fine. We could
You
say
can.
that. We could say,
If
hey,
you want to take more. votes,
item 7 doesn't apply because this is not a,
Yeah.
economic hardship or whatever.
If it's not included and no votes are taken on it, the assumption would be that it wasn't applicable.
If it's helpful to you though, and if you don't mind taking the votes, I can just include all standards in the decision letters and you can vote whether it's applicable or not. Or alternatively, I can just give you a copy of the ordinance at each meeting and you can look over those and decide if you want to include one or not, if it's not in there.
So let's
What kind
say,
of standards are there?
I mean, there's not a ton for historic preservation, so.
and I'm just wondering if in theory we could sit down, okay, now we're on part two. Rebecca could make a motion, hey, on part two, sections 4, 5, and 9, the hardship do not apply to this, application. And
Yeah.
Matt, if he's voting, could second, and then we could vote, say, okay, then we
You could-
strike.
Yeah, you
Whatever.
can definitely group votes on ones that you all think are not applicable
Yeah.
to speed up the
And
process.
then we don't have to read through those.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That would be better process.
Yeah, well, and I think too, especially with new commission members too, we want to make sure everyone's kind of maybe doing it the hard way a little bit first, and then we're learning.
Yeah, I mean, these votes seem kind of cumbersome, but they do protect the decision when you take all of these votes and you word them in the way that is basically mirrors the ordinance's provisions is what.
Yeah, and I think that was a really big step in our process when we actually started formally voting on each point.
One
Yeah.
concern I have is from the point of view of the applicant. Okay? We have all these ordinances that might apply and we decide at the time of the meeting, we're gonna use these, or these. What opportunity have we given the applicant to respond to the requirements for those particular ordinances?
So the applicant gets the packet the same time that you do, so they can review it before the meeting. And they, yeah, I mean, the ordinance is also publicly available, but
No, I appreciate that, and I suppose in the past, from my sort of seeing it, we've relied upon the applicant to know that they can look through the ordinances and figure out, for example, the financial hardship piece. And have, if they think that is relevant to this, be part of their presentation and the data they provide to us to meet those requirements, right? Because we're saying it's a burden of proof is on the applicant to provide the data for us to be able to make these determinations. So I guess my thing is that, it seems inappropriate not to provide a good information packet to the applicant as to what all these ordinances might be and what they might need to bring if they think that, for example, exception applies to them.
Here's
Is
what-
that information with the application? Like, I would assume that the application would
Here's
have
what I'd
some
say to that.
information.
Yeah.
Staff always wants to be helpful to applicants and will be
Right.
as helpful as possible to the applicants. The legal department, though, of the city can't represent the applicants.
Sure.
Okay, the legal
Understand
department represents the city.
Yep.
And if, I work with the Board of Appeals as well, and if an applicant calls me and asks questions about that kind of thing, I try to be as helpful as possible. I tell them, I'm not your attorney. I can't give you legal opinions, but I can be as helpful as possible, without representing you.
Sure.
Because I represent the city and I guide the board
Mm.
at the proceeding.
Right.
So, if the applicant wants, involved legal interpretations of the ordinance, the applicant should consult their own attorney.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then, I apologize if this is a dumb question, not a lawyer. So then if we're not including a part, whether it's omitted because planning staff doesn't think it's required or whatever, or we don't have it on here because of whatever reason, we didn't think to bring it up, are we robbing the applicant of a due process opportunity, or however you would word it? Because, if Snuffy Smith comes in front of us and has something that could potentially have been a hardship for economic return or occupancy or whatever, but it wasn't on the sheet, so we didn't bring it up, or we didn't think to bring it up, have we then robbed them of a due process, or
I
no?
don't think so.
Okay. I just- See you allowed to speak.
you're the chair. This is not an open,
Okay.
this is, the public can be here, that, you decide on things like that, so. But we're not robbing an applicant of due process if they don't present the evidence to satisfy the elements required of the application.
When we've finished the legal training, I'll be happy to give you an opportunity to speak.
Low income housing, folks. And through that whole entire hour and a half, the financial hardship was never brought up until you guys just started talking about it. That's the stuff I'm talking about. Yes, you're wrong, yeah. That was one of the very first things I said when I sat out there. And if I got voted down today, that would have been, if I hadn't already done this work, this would have been another 3 months of no residents. That's a financial hardship big time. I'm not crying poverty, but that's 6 people in homes. Because there would have been people nobody else would take. We all know that. Those are the people I have. Okay.
Any other questions? 'Cause I'm finished with mine. Yeah.
Mike, do we need to have yours on a different day or?
It's gonna be at least an hour.
I love your.
So may I suggest that we discuss whether we maybe have separate, an additional meeting where we can have this? We can table that discussion as well.
I don't think we knew.
I-
it was gonna take as long as it.
Yeah,
I'm fine with doing it at your next meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And fresh.
Yeah,
um,
and awake.
Anya, you mentioned something earlier about reconsideration of a vote.
Mhm.
That's first time I've ever heard of it. So I would like to ask some questions about reconsidering the vote. What is the process? Is that something we discuss obviously publicly? Do we discuss that? out loud?
Why don't
What
you
is
have,
that?
I would suggest a phone call with Anya. or
Okay.
with Me.
Well,
Within 10 days?
the only issue is that if they vote to reconsider it, it has to be within 10 days of today.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
they won't meet again for another month. The applicant also has the ability to request reconsideration, and that has to be filed within 3 business days of the vote, so.
Okay, so in theory, if an applicant files within 3 days requesting reconsideration, then that is then moved to the February meeting for reconsider, okay,
Let me
Right.
just read through to make sure I'm not missing anything.
excuse me.
Could we reconsider a vote immediately after we take it? Is there
Um,
any sort, is there any sort of thing if new information
That's
comes
the
to light?
idea of
Yeah,
A
yeah.
motion for reconsideration is really something
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
very close in time to when the vote was taken.
So-
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why there's a 10-day limit.
So in
Of course.
theory, could someone have put forth a motion for reconsideration and then immediately follow with a motion to say, continue to the February meeting or whatever the next month, next month meeting would be? Or whatever the month may be that's going on.
Just give me a second. here,
Yeah.
'cause I
Hey, I'm sorry, this is the first I'd ever heard of it.
No, it's okay. There's
So I wanna
quite a
make
bit
sure.
here about the process, so.
Yeah, no, I'm asking like, could we put a motion consideration like and add it on to the end of add it on to an end of like the existing meeting?
It says if a motion for reconsideration is made and it succeeds, a hearing shall be scheduled.
Mhm.
The applicant and any other parties for whom notice was required for the original hearing, which would mean abutters in this case, would be notified of the decision, the date of the new hearing. So we would have to re-notify. So it would have to be a different
Okay.
date.
Thank you.
Does that date have to be within, so we have to give 14 days for notification, right?
There's actually not a required, we typically do it like within 12 days. There's not a requirement on the length of time though, so. But it doesn't give you like a specific timeline of when that hearing has to be scheduled. It would be up to you. So,
So then, in theory, if that motion was put forward and a motion was passed, the chair could say, can we schedule this for the February, March, whatever, the following month meeting from when that was made?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So I will ask before we adjourn, is there anyone that would consider a motion for Or can I even ask for that? Does it have to be, am I allowed to? Again, first day as chair, so I'm trying to make sure.
So the motion can only be made by a commissioner who voted on the prevailing side of the decision. So there's that restriction.
Failing, so that's the yes votes.
So only people who voted yes can change their vote?
No, it's saying only people who voted yes can make a motion to reconsider.
Yeah.
I see.
Right. Was the
sorry,
no
you-
side prevailing?
That's the
Wasn't no
vote.
side prevailing, even though it was the minority vote, it was prevailing?
The prevailing side was the side that voted that this applicant did not satisfy.
So it would have to
So
be
the
the no.
prevailing
One of you two.
would have to be
votes.
one of the two no votes. You agree with that?
I mean, it's kind of complicated because the only reason the decision, well, see, it's complicated because A, you made votes that it didn't meet certain standards. So then
Right.
you shouldn't really have voted that it met the
Yeah.
requirements, period. But then on top of it, you needed 4 affirmative votes to make the decision. So it failed on that basis. So it's kind of hard to say what the prevailing side is. Yeah.
It failed because the elements weren't satisfied. There was at least 2, right?
Yeah.
That were applicable, that the vote was that it did not satisfy those elements.
There were 3.
So it would have to be a reconsideration of a number of votes. It'd be very
But
complicated.
We were also unaware that we could do the approval with the conditions that it would meet the standard of the consultant's recommendations. So we could. So I would be in favor of putting the motion forward that we reconsider if we could in fact then involve the applicant and determine if they would be willing to accept the approval with the conditions to meet our standard or our recommended.
So you
Sorry.
want to make a motion
Yes, for reconsideration
of which vote?
of the, oh goodness.
Because the sections that did not,
And were you one of the
Right.
prevailing?
Yes, I voted no on the final
You voted
decision.
final, okay.
Yes.
and I think she voted no on all but
And-
one of the subsections of part 2 on my tick sheet.
Right.
I mean,
But
It-
you also,
if you reconsider the final vote,
right.
there's no way logically that vote can be that the applicant satisfied the elements.
Right, which is completely correct. But you folks did say that we could say that we would like him to satisfy those elements as part of a motion of approval. So we could do it with conditions that would require he meet those standards.
But you've already voted that he did not satisfy 2 of the elements.
Correct.
I- So I'm going to suggest that a motion to reconsider the final vote would be
Null and void.
Moot, right,
checklist. I don't know.
right.
So a motion maybe to reconsider if that the project met the evaluation standards under part 2, parts 1, 2.
It would be
Part
much more
1
complicated.
what failed, part 1 failed, and then part 2, sub 1 and 2 were what failed, and then the final vote.
Right.
This would,
And if there's nothing we can do, there's nothing we can do.
Because essentially what we would be saying is he did not meet these standards. However, if he
You know-
accepted the redesign, the recommendations.
this motion to reconsider can be made by way of a request made within 10 days of today's vote. Okay, it could be sent in.
You mean by the commissioners? What do you mean? Who would send it in?
Anybody.
As though they have to move reconsideration at the same or at a regular or special meeting of the commission. Or the applicant can also request in writing in 3 business days that the decision be reconsidered.
That can happen. Yeah, and if the applicant requests it within 3 business days, then you would schedule a meeting to consider the applicant's request for reconsideration.
Then I withdraw the potential motion that I was attempting to.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could send that to the February meeting.
On the agenda. Oh,
It is on the agenda. It'd also be my presentation. You could table that too.
And about the add-on agenda item to discuss whether we have more meetings,
Yes.
so they don't go so long. Voting member, I can't do that.
Continue our would it be continuation or tabling of the planning and advisory
I think
consultant?
it's continuation. I don't think it matters.
Oh, I move to continue, make a continuation for the planning and Mike Pullen's training till the February 2026 meeting and the discussion of future meetings as well, excuse me, until the February 2026.
Seconded?
Roll call vote.
Yes.
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 I also vote yes. And if there's no other business, then in the words of Edmund, my one power, I adjourn.